What you are about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about struggle, survival, and success. Minutes later, nobody could believe what they were seeing. A boy who once begged for scraps on American streets. A boy who slept under bridges. A boy people dismissed as worthless, was now running in the Olympic Games, carrying the flag of a nation that never believed in him. But before that moment of triumph, before the medals, his life was nothing but a storm of hunger, humiliation, and endless rejection. I knew him when he was just Kofi, the invisible boy. People walked past him every day and never looked twice. To them, he was just another African refugee, another dark-skinned immigrant who didn't belong. He was the kid people whispered about, the one mothers told their children to avoid, the one security guards chased away from store entrances. But if you had looked closely into his eyes back then, you would have seen something extraordinary. A fire, a silent, unbreakable determination, a refusal to be erased. He didn't know it then, but those endless nights on the streets would become the foundation of a story so powerful that the whole world would one day stop and listen. To understand how Kofi became a name chanted in Olympic stadiums, you need to hear about the hunger that twisted his stomach, the freezing nights when he thought he wouldn't wake up, and the insults that carved scars deeper than any wound. Before we continue, quick reminder: if you want more incredible stories like this one, full of resilience, pain, and ultimate triumph, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. It only takes a second, but it helps keep stories like Kofi's alive and heard by the world. Now, let's get back to it. Kofi came from Ghana. He was only 14 when his family decided to send him away. His village had been struck by poverty, and his mother, widowed and exhausted, believed America would save him. She sold what little she had and bought him a one-way ticket to New York. He arrived with nothing but a small bag, a piece of dried bread, and the faint hope that someone would be waiting on the other side. But nobody was there. The relative who promised to take him in never showed up. The number his mother gave him didn't work. Within days, he was on the streets of the Bronx, surrounded by towering buildings and endless noise, completely alone. He didn't speak English well. He had no money. He was terrified. And the city, brutal and unforgiving, didn't care. At first, he tried to sleep in bus stations, but guards chased him out. He wandered into churches, but the pews were locked at night. Eventually, he found shelter under a bridge, where the hum of passing cars became his lullaby. That cold cement became his bed for months. People think hunger is just emptiness in your stomach. They don't know the way it eats your soul. Kofi searched dumpsters for leftovers. Sometimes he fought rats for scraps. Other times, kind strangers gave him half-eaten sandwiches. But more often he heard laughter or insults. He tried to find work. He washed dishes for a few dollars, carried groceries, swept floors. But most times, shop owners told him to leave. They didn't trust a homeless African boy with nothing but rags on his back. The insults were worse than the hunger. Strangers shouted at him to go back to Africa. Children mocked his accent. Even when he tried to clean himself at public fountains, people wrinkled their noses as if his very existence was an offense. Every humiliation pushed him deeper into despair. And yet, every night, when the city grew quiet, he ran. Running was the only thing that made him feel alive. He had nothing else. No family, no food, no comfort. But when he ran, he forgot the insults. He forgot the cold. His legs carried him faster than his pain, faster than his fear. He ran barefoot sometimes, his feet blistered and bleeding. Other nights he ran in shoes so torn they barely held together. The rhythm of his steps against the pavement became his heartbeat. In those moments, under the moonlight, he wasn't a refugee. He wasn't a beggar. He was free. But he had no idea how much those secret runs would change everything. One morning, While sprinting through a park, an old man stopped and watched him. The man's name was Thomas, a retired track coach who had trained state champions decades earlier. He saw something in Kofi's stride, raw power, untrained but undeniable. Kofi froze when Thomas approached. His whole life, when people came near, it was to chase him away or insult him. He expected another harsh word. Instead, Thomas asked where he had learned to run like that. Kofi didn't answer at first. He didn't even believe the question was real. But Thomas returned every morning, bringing him water, sometimes food, sometimes old training gear. One day, he handed Kofi a pair of battered but intact running shoes. To anyone else, they were worthless. To Kofi, they were wings. That was the first time he felt seen. But he had no idea that this fragile connection would soon be ripped away. Thomas convinced Kofi to try a local high school meet. Kofi wasn't even enrolled at the school, but Thomas pulled favors to sneak him into the race. When Kofi lined up, the crowd laughed. His shorts didn't match. His shoes looked ancient, his body thin and frail. Nobody expected him to last. The gun fired. Kofi exploded down the track. His legs moved like fire. Within seconds, the laughter stopped. He crossed the finish line far ahead of everyone else. The crowd was silent, stunned. Coaches whispered. Parents exchanged looks. But just as quickly, whispers of doubt followed. Who was he? Where did he come from? Did he even belong there? Officials tried to disqualify him. He's not a student here, they argued. But no one could erase the fact that he had outrun everyone. Kofi felt a spark of hope for the first time. Maybe, just maybe, he could be more than a street boy. But life wasn't ready to give him victory yet. Weeks later, Thomas collapsed during practice. A heart attack. Kofi rushed to help, but by the time the ambulance arrived, it was too late. The man who believed in him, the man who gave him his first shoes, was gone. Kofi sat alone in the park that night, holding the stopwatch Thomas used to time him. The city lights blurred through his tears. For days he didn't run. He didn't eat. He thought it was over. But then he remembered Thomas's words. When you run, you carry not just yourself, but everyone who ever believed in you. Kofi clenched the stopwatch and swore he would keep running, not just for himself, but for Thomas. Kofi threw himself into training. He ran through empty lots, sprinted along cracked sidewalks, timed himself obsessively. His body transformed. Muscles formed where bones once showed. His speed grew relentless. Word spread. A community organizer noticed him and pulled strings to get him into amateur races. He won. Then he won again and again. Each victory was harder, but every finish line proved something. Kofi wasn't just fast, he was unstoppable. Reporters began writing about him, but always with the same headline, the homeless runner. They reduced his entire existence to a label. Sponsors refused him. He's not marketable, they said. But every insult only fueled him further. He wasn't running for fame. He was running to prove that someone like him could not only survive, but dominate. An Olympic scout finally saw him at a regional meet. The speed, the grit, the refusal to quit. It was undeniable. Within months, his paperwork was resolved. Citizenship secured. The boy who once ate from dumpsters was now preparing for Olympic trials. But destiny wasn't done testing him. During a critical qualifying race, Kofi stumbled. His knee slammed into the track. Blood poured down his leg. The crowd gasped. Most runners would have quit, but Kofi didn't. He dragged himself up and limped across the finish line. He came last that day, but everyone watching knew they had witnessed something far more important than victory. They saw courage. When the final Olympic team was announced, his name was there. Against all odds, he was going to the games. The opening ceremony was surreal. Cameras zoomed in on his face as he carried his nation's flag. Millions watching at home didn't know his story. They just saw a runner. But I knew the nights he slept under bridges, the times he was spat on, the moments he almost gave up. And then came the race. The 5,000 meters. The stadium thundered with noise. When the gun fired, Kofi started strong. Midway, he fell behind. Commentators doubted him. But with 2 laps left, he surged. His strides ate the track. One by one, he overtook runners until he was in front. The final stretch was chaos. Screams pounding hearts. The world watching. And then it happened. He crossed first. Gold. The boy nobody wanted had become the man. Nobody could stop. The stadium erupted. Kofi dropped to his knees, clutching the stopwatch Thomas once gave him. Tears streamed down his face. He whispered a prayer for his mother, for Thomas, for every child who had been told they were nothing. But the real shock was what he did afterward. Kofi didn't keep the money for himself. He used it to build a foundation for refugee children, giving them food, education, and sports opportunities. He returned to Africa to build training centers, determined to make sure no child felt invisible the way he once did. When reporters asked why, he said, "Because running saved me. Now it's my turn to save them."